1855. A ship returned without crew, her logbook whispering only silence. In the early 19th century, the Arctic was the stage upon which empires rehearsed their certainty. Britain wagered charts against ice, sending oak-bellied ships north with strengthened bows and holds stuffed with coal, salt pork, biscuit, and instruments boxed like reliquaries. Among these vessels sailed HMS Resolute, a compact bark whose very name promised stamina, as if language could buttress timber. Her company was a cross-section of the island, a surgeon with tidy hands, a carpenter who sang hymns under his breath, a boy who had never seen a winter sky last all day, and officers who folded their confidence like uniforms. The log began with the calm arithmetic of seamanship, latitudes, winds, the temper of the crew, each line a plank laid across uncertainty. North pulled at them with a patient gravity. Ice blinked on the horizon, then closed like eyelids. Leads opened and healed overnight as if the sea were practicing refusal. Men took turns at the saws, sweating in air that burned their throats, freeing the hull a foot at a time while the Aurora pitched green silk over the masts. The surgeon recorded chilblains and cracked lips. The carpenter noted a groan in the forepeak, like a hymn sung by wood. A joke circulated that if the sun would only remember them, they would remember their prayers. Even jokes sounded like bargains that winter. By late season, they should have been turning south toward wives who kept lamps in windows and toward admiralty rooms lined with maps like stained glass. Instead, the entries began to thin. Corrections crept into the figures. Twice the master wrote, "Ice moving though the sea lay calm," a sentence that made sense to no one and to everyone. The last clear position promised open water if the wind shifts kindly. After that, the hand faltered, ink paling as if frost had entered the nib. The voyage still looked ordinary from a distance. Sail, sound, sew, sing. But the log had learned another language, the grammar of approaching absence. No one writes that phrase. The page writes it for them. Whalers out of Greenland were first to glimpse her. The horizon was the color of pewter. The swell moved like a thing asleep. A silhouette lay across it. Sails hanging, yards askew, no smoke from the galley funnel. As the whaleboats pulled alongside, the name carved on her transom confirmed the chill already prickling their tongues. Resolute. No hail came back. A gull on the mizzen top regarded them with the ownership of a landlord. They boarded expecting violence or rot. Instead, they found neatness as sharp as an inspection day. The galley pots held a rind of stew, the fat lidded like cooling wax. Hammocks were furled with care. The surgeon's chest was latched. The carpenter's tools lay arranged by size, their edges oiled. In the captain's cabin, the chart shone under glass. Dividers rested on a meridian as if a hand had paused to answer a knock. A kettle sat upon the gimbal, cold but not rusted. In the bread room, the tally chalks matched the ledger. No boat was missing from its davits, no locker pried, no coat torn. The air held the faint iron smell of a crew just gone below. Only there was no below to go to. The log waited on the quarterdeck table. Its script marched with naval confidence until, mid-sentence, it simply halted. Course set for. The quill lay across the gutter, a black hair of ink drawn to the margin. A boatswain's mate touched the page and snatched his finger back, swearing it felt warm. They laughed at him, then did not. Whaler men with the good habit of disbelief searched bilges and lazarette, called into the magazine wrapped bulkheads like policemen. Silence replied with professional efficiency. At dusk, they fired a rocket and waited for answering light. The sky returned only a pale band that could have been aurora, or the idea of one. By lantern, the men lowered the ship's boats and began the practical sorrow of towing a prize. Behind them, the wake closed neatly, as if the sea preferred tidiness in all matters pertaining to the missing. The Admiralty received ship and book with the steady appetite of offices that dine on puzzles. In a room of green bays and lamps, clerks angled the log toward the light and read aloud in turns, their voices stripped of opinion. Early pages were exemplary. Noon positions, wind veering and backing. The sermon read on Sunday. 2 men on the sick list for frost-bitten fingers. 1 punished with extra duty. The handwriting sat upright like a captain at parade. Then the seam in the narrative opened. The master recorded lights to the north that moved like men walking, a metaphor laughed at in daylight and folded carefully away at night. He noted ice, advancing though the sea lay calm, a phrase that returned like a toothache. Lines tightened. Letters crowded together as if cold might be kept at bay by proximity. Numbers wavered, corrected and recorrected, as if the earth had shifted under the sextant. The surgeon's hand appears twice where it should not, signing for the master with the apology of ink. Incapacitated. The last half-page held 4 dates and 3 beginnings. Midway through the promise of home, course set for, the nib died. A blot pooled and refused to sink. A small black weather that would not disperse. The quill lay across the gutter like a pinned spar. Clerks proposed mortal explanations. Mutiny leaves signatures, missing boats, broken locks, stolen spirits. Sickness leaves disorder, but the cabins were brushed and buckled, lamps trimmed. Violence leaves marks. Even ice cannot file them away. There were none. A gentleman from the hydrographic office spoke about optical oddities, about aurora playing at horizon tricks, about the brain inventing motion when the world held still. Another clerk, who had once been to sea, said nothing at all and watched the blot until it seemed to breathe. The log went into a cabinet whose key kept its own counsel. On the cover, a note in a careful hand read, "Irregular, cause unassigned." London resumed its noise, but within certain rooms a quiet drafted under doors like a change of weather nobody wished to name. Rumor needs only a table and ale. In dockside rooms where sawdust swallowed the weak, sailors proposed human causes because human causes can be bargained with. A hard captain, then knives, a soft one, then desertion. But cuts and theft leave signatures, a missing longboat, a broken lock, a cask gone light. Resolute bore none. So the talk bent toward weather of another kind. A Dundee man swore he had once seen, in fog, a full-rigged ship running free against the wind, sails bellied though the air lay slack. Another told of hearing at noon on a glassy day the rattle of blocks and the slap of sheets as if a vessel tacked invisibly beside him. A third described an unlit procession of lanterns moving across new ice, swinging in a rhythm that matched footsteps and belonged to no bird. Night lacquered these reports. Sleep supplied crew. Men muttered of rowboats laboring across a lead beneath a sky that never brightened. Faces bleached to tallow, mouths working without sound. As if voices had been spent and only motion remained. Officials tried to quarantine the tale. The Admiralty presented Resolute as a recovered asset. Hull sound, rigging restored. But among seamen, her name became a charm, spoken backwards. They said she carried silence in her timbers, that any man who slept in her hammocks dreamed of a narrow channel and woke unable to speak for an hour. A caulker napping in her shade opened his eyes to frost jeweled along the coamings. It melted with a passing cloud, leaving his palms wet. Another, a pious gunner, refused to pass her bow without a touch to the figurehead and a murmur that sounded like apology. Mutiny remained the comfortable rumor because it promised motive and blame. Yet the layout of that empty deck argued otherwise. Disaster disorders, absence arranges. Resolute had been arranged with a nicety no terror owns. If fear drove men off her, fear also folded their clothes, latched their chests, and trimmed the lamps before it departed. That was the part of the story even rumor could not drink away. London parlours soon attempted their own navigation, from whiskey to candlelight to the deliberate dark. Spiritualists arranged circles, fingers linked upon polished mahogany, trumpets tilted like artillery against doubt. The logbook, borrowed, copied, embellished, was read aloud until its broken sentence gained the authority of scripture. When the table tipped, some swore an alphabet knocked out STILLABOARD. Others said the knocks were only the honesty of old wood adjusting to warm rooms. Outside the curtains, practical men kept practical accounts. A harbor porter said that when he touched Resolute's rail during refit, his breath smoked, though the day was mild. A yard boy, sleeping off a beating in the forepeak, woke to boots crossing the deck above, counted the steps, and found every man snoring in his billet. A lamp trimmer learned to cup his flame when passing the mainmast at night. The draught there was keener, as if the mast had become a chimney for a colder air that did not belong to weather. Newspapers mocked mediums while selling the mystery by the inch. The more jokes printed, the thicker the queues at doors where bells were tied to tables. Skeptics left pale and annoyed at themselves. Believers left convinced the crew had not abandoned duty so much as transferred it to the keeping of a ship that could now escort itself. There are vessels, one medium said, that learn to sail on breathing. In daylight, the remark sounded ridiculous. Near midnight, it felt precise. One evening, a captain whose sleeve still smelled faintly of tar laid his palm on the log's last page and shut his eyes. He said nothing. Later, when asked what he had felt, he replied like a man remembering a tune. Weather. Not wind, not cold, simply the pressure change a body knows when a door opens onto another room. The hosts laughed, then looked at their own doors and listened. In the street, a cart went past. In the fireplace, a coal sighed. Somewhere in the house, a floor settled as if under careful footfall. The Admiralty prefers outcomes to atmospheres. They scraped the hull, dressed the spars, and renewed the rigging until everything gleamed with the obedience of rope. Men who mocked ghosts by daylight took the berths, then slept poorly. On the first passage, A compass wandered 8 points and returned like a drunk who never quite sits. Lanterns guttered in drafts that argued with the written wind. Twice the boatswain took roll at midnight because footsteps crossed the deck and paused by the hatch while every man answered his name below. Yet the ship did her work. She carried dispatches along gray coasts, sounded shoals older charts had guessed at, and outsailed squalls that would have made a more superstitious captain heave to. Shore leave cured laughter, duty restored it, night eroded it again. A young topman woke tasting iron, remembering climbing in frost though the yard had been warm and tarred. An old quartermaster stopped speaking for 3 days, then resumed as if conversation were a rope paid out and hauled in by tides no one else could feel. Requests for transfer arrived with apologies that sounded like lies because the reason that felt true could not be written. Able seamen cited mothers, knees, prospects. The purser pretended to believe them. The captain pretended to be convinced. Together, they kept the ledger of departures tidy, and the ship sailed on with new names who learned the old quiet quickly. What changes a man is not always fear. Sometimes it is listening. By the end of the season, those who had scoffed at mess began to pause before stepping into the darkness of the waist, as if asking leave of a corridor. No incident could be proved. No rule had been broken by anything that could be punished. But prayer returned to certain mouths. Short ones muttered in the lee of bulkheads. Prayers not for rescue, only for regard. The hope that whatever kept pace on the other side of the planking knew they were trying to be tidy in their souls as well as their gear. Wood has afterlives. When Resolute's service finally ended, timbers went ashore into other shapes. Lintels, sideboards, the proud slabs of desks for rooms where empires practice writing. Clerks praised the grain. Some kept shawls on chairs all year. Now and then a junior working late would feel a thread of wind unspool along the skirting board and hear, just under the noises that belong to buildings, the measured gait of boots on planks that were no longer planks. A candle guttered in a room with windows shut tight. The clerk stood and found nothing to shut, nothing to open, only a sense of someone having just left and politely taken the chill with him. The log remained with government, asleep behind a lock. Its final page still arrests the eye with the power of what refuses to continue. Course set for. It invites latitude and hope and will not permit either to be written. The sea finished it with an M dash of ice. Scholars allowed a glance make notes that smell faintly of damp ships. Most write the same phrase. Neatness inexplicable. Children learned aversion in alleys and made it crueler. Mothers warned sons not to sign on ships that came home alone. Preachers used the tale to shorten sermons. Taverns used it to lengthen the night. The Admiralty called it a curiosity and kept the lights on. Spiritualists called it a message and blew the candles out. Sailors called it a warning and slept facing the door. What is certain is this. A ship went out full of names and came back with none. The wood returned. The words thinned. Between the two lies a craft the sea knows well. Editing. Sometimes the ocean does not destroy. It revises, leaving behind only what it wishes us to see. If you rest your wrists upon a desk made from such planks and your pen stalls for no reason you can name, you may blame fatigue or ink. You may also consider that timber remembers weight, and that silence, once shipped, is difficult to unload.